The following program deals with a controversial
subject.
The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation.
The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
the top talents in the comic book business are here to tell everything they know.
Good evening, everybody out there in YouTube land. Welcome to another episode of the Industry of Comics, episode 23, gentlemen. I'm here, of course, with...
23?
Episode 23, of course, with Jesse and Dennis, two longtime comic book store retailers, brick and mortar owners, store owners, industry vets, whatever you want to call them. They are in the trenches. They've been in the trenches for a long time, and this is a show about the industry of comics.
The best phrase is experiencers. Jesse, you've changed my entire opinion about that word.
Yeah. Well, speaking about experiencers, we're going to have quite a few experiencers in the house this coming Thursday, you guys. So for those of you guys that don't know, we like to do special shows every once in a while, and we try to do those on Thursday nights. And this Thursday, we have an epic celebration, 50 years of collecting comics by the one and only Brian Pulido. So we're gonna kind of, I don't know if you call it a roast, but not necessarily a roast, but I'm sure he'll be the butt of some jokes, or there'll be some funny stories being told. But it's gonna be fun. We're just gonna kind of hang out and shoot the shit about collecting comics and what it's like to be a fan and a creator and a lover of comics for 50 years. Which there's a lot of you guys out there that are getting to that point.
Yeah, I think it's cool because we all have. Is the voices off?
No,
I can hear you. I can hear you fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why?
Okay. It looks like on my side the voices are off completely.
No.
Okay, so it doesn't matter. So I think what's cool about it is we're all comic book fans before we become comic book store owners or we're in the industry.
Yeah. That's the key.
I was doing a fake voice thing, Jesse, where you couldn't hear me, but it looked like I was animated.
Yeah, like you're miming it. Yeah. So I'm actually then jump out and come back in because my screen is just frozen. So I'll come back in.
Sounds good.
That was totally lost on Jesse.
Yeah.
I saw you busting up Brian, so I was like, okay, I'm just keep going. I'm going to keep going. Brian gets it. Brian gets the joke. Jesse can't see it. Okay.
Yeah. So we're it's gonna be a lot of fun. You guys know we're big fans of Brian and Coffin Comics and what he has created over here at Beyond Wednesdays, and we'll have that Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys tune in for that. But tonight's show is basically us talking about a couple things that are being talked about behind the scenes, or not behind the scenes, I guess, in many areas of comic book industry,
it's
Facebook and YouTube and that type of stuff. You know,
there's important things going on, and once again, the reason for this show is to kind of educate people on a different level than what the hot take is in the YouTube comic sphere. So, you know, I saw this coming across, and Brian, I don't know, did you get a chance to watch the video that Jesse and I were talking about?
No, I'm gonna watch it I'm gonna watch it fresh tonight.
Well, we'll get to that in a second, but there's a lot of hot takes going on about what's going on, and Jesse and I were talking to each other, and we actually had a hot take that was actually kind of dispelled, and then we had other takes that we think that's where where our experiencer level is, and then when you get to the influencer level, they're taking the same thing, but taking it in a totally different direction. So I when we were talking about tonight's show, we said, hey, let's start off. We don't ever EFAP anything really. And I have this one show that I watch occasionally, and it's good for a few hot takes that go in one direction and a few hot takes that go in another direction. And I watched this the other morning when it went live, and I was like, you know what? I want to talk about it because I actually had in the back of my head that opinion. But then as I started to think about it, I was like, no, because of the show that we did with Ross Ritchie, I had a different take on it than what they did. And I kind of want to just, add those extra ingredients to this hot take so that people in our show and hopefully maybe they'll even see this if somebody lets them know. Do you have it there, Brian?
What is the name of the YouTube channel?
Clownfish TV.
And when was this that they did this?
2 days ago.
2 days ago.
All right, let's take a look here. Let's see here.
I can send it to you in message if you can't find it.
Which one?
Hold on, let me see.
Yeah, because I don't see anything there.
I sent it to somebody, so I'll grab the link from there.
Another story we're going to talk about is the rumblings of San Diego Comic-Con changing sites. There's a lot of talk of that right now because their lease is coming up in 2026, if I'm not mistaken, right? So we'll be getting. Yep, we'll be getting.
All right, Brian, I have to send this to you through Facebook Messenger, where we do all of our others.
Yep, and we'll also be taking any questions from the chat tonight also. So if you guys have any,
I see. You know what? They don't put Boom in the thing, but it's Rita Repulsa.
Okay.
Because it's Power Rangers.
There we go.
Yeah, Jordan, they've been talking to Vegas for about 10 years now.
Yeah.
And so it'll be very interesting when we get to that slot.
It's over the same topic, Jesse, for the last 10 years. Every time the hotels get greedy, they threaten it, and then they re-sign the deal, and I think the deal is finally coming up to the point where it's like, look, guys, we tried. We tried, but you guys keep getting greedy as shit.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. So basically, we're going to do a little watching of a video. I have not seen this yet. For those of you guys that didn't have a chance to see the Ross Ritchie interview, I want to put this in a little context. Boom Studios have been sold. We were lucky to have Ross on the show right before the announcement came out. And been very interesting. It was an excellent interview, as it always is with Ross. He's one of those guys. I kind of put him in like that same category as like Rob Liefeld. Whenever you see them and they're talking about comics, that you can see how much they love comics and how important comic books are to them in their lives and growing up and all that stuff. And it was a great interview. And then like 3 days later, it came out that Boom was sold to Penguin Random House, and a huge amount of content creators on YouTube and creators on Facebook and their backroom their group messages and all that stuff have been talking about this because it's a big deal. And that's the video we're gonna watch. This is a Clownfish TV on YouTube. Very huge channel, massive channel. So we're make sure you guys go check them out. This is going to be we're going to try and not just watch it. We're going to do some commentary over it.
We'll stop every once in a while because they do have some points, and we're just going to break it up.
So this is definitely fair use, and we'll try and make some good points about what they say. So appreciate these guys for making this content. All right, here we go.
Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And the comic book industry is cashing out. Looks like Boom Studios sold out to Random House, to Penguin Random House, whatever it is now. We used to have like 6 major publishers. Now they're down to like 4, I think. But this was always the plan. According to Ross Ritchie, basically he wanted to start the company and he wanted to cash out. And this is how the enshittification of everything happens, in my personal opinion. Now, I don't know Ross Ritchie. But I'm saying everybody starts companies now, not with the intention.
Let's just pause right there, because this is one of those, like, Ross literally told us on our show the history of Boom. And so, right off the get, they're on the wrong footing because Ross did not start Boom to sell out. He started Boom to work with some of his favorite comic book people on comic books. And even on our show, if you watch that episode, because I've watched that episode 3 times, when I suggested and I'd known Ross for 19 years since he started Boom. When I suggested that, he corrected me, and you can see the look on my face because that's when I finally understood the bigger picture. It's Godfather 3. He was Michael Corleone. He thought he was out. He was going into this legitimate business of publishing comic books, and then Hollywood, everybody he knew from Hollywood, came knocking on his door. And he's like, just when I'm out, they pull me back in.
Yep.
And that's when he starts talking TV deals and movie deals.
It's funny how many.
Yeah, I think I do think there's a verbiage issue right off the bat. It wasn't sold out. He sold to. Yeah. And I would make sure that those two words mean a lot. There's a big difference between selling out versus selling to. He sold to Penguin House, and that's very important to know.
It's funny how many industry execs and people in comic books that aren't necessarily creators come from the movie and TV world, and they do it getting that whole story about getting out from, we had Brian Haberlin, I believe, had the same story. I know he's a creator, but some creators that way, but a lot of people in the comic book industry, I feel I've heard that story from.
Well, and Darren Davis.
Darren Davis, yes. Yeah. So, all right, here we go.
So, keep going. Sorry.
Growing the company organically, but with the intention of selling it.
Well, I would think that was the case, but I don't think it's worth as much now as it would have been worth a few years ago.
No.
So at that point, you didn't really win.
So what we'll
that's a funny statement. Yeah. They think that he's
that's where they're wrong again, because we went through on this show multiple times. Something is Killing the Children has 3 or 4 of the top trade paperbacks from 2023 that were published over the last 3 or 4 years. That is money. That's what Penguin is looking at. While they're selling these books and shipping them to Borders and to Amazon warehouses, and that little book scan tabulator keeps tick, 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 tick. They're like, hey, what's with this Boom thing? And on top of that, they've got all the Power Ranger volumes. They've got Something is Killing the Children. Then they see Keanu, and they're like, wait a second here. How much are these guys saying they're worth? I think this is a good deal. Let's buy them, and we get to own that and distribute that.
Right. I think, again, I'm going to come at this from a corporate view. The corporate view is I need to see charts that say that he would have got more money 2 years ago than he would today. How do you come to that conclusion there?
And 2 years ago was post-pandemic too, where all the output was way down.
Also, which is very interesting, is she makes a statement where she says, I'm going to replay it just so I can hear it again, because something along the lines of, well, he didn't really win. And what you guys don't realize is that Ross is the biggest winner in all this, and it's not about money. So here we'll continue here.
Growing the company organically, but with the intention of selling it.
Well, I would think that was the case, but I don't think it's worth as much now as it would have been worth a few years ago.
No.
So at that point, you didn't really win.
So what we'll talk about this. I think they, as I understand it, they were closely associated with Fox at one point. I don't know if Fox actually owned part of them or not, but then when Disney bought Fox, everything went to hell in a handbasket. So I think Boom Studios always was basically like Platinum, where I think the only reason they published anything was as pitches for Netflix shows and movie deals and stuff like that. But now Random House is going to take it, which is interesting because Penguin Random House has been eating Diamond's lunch too. So this whole thing is weird. And this is after, was it last year or the year before that Embracer Group bought Dark Horse, and then they had to write it off this year because it wasn't making any money. And it's just like, what the hell is going on? So comics are fine, everybody.
Great.
Let's pause that for a second. So it's about the recipe. Dark Horse, and pardon me, forgive me, I don't pay attention to the goings on of Dark Horse from year to year. They kind of fell off my radar for a while, off and on. Dark Horse is an IP-generated company that lost most of its IPs. They actually got a few, bones thrown to them because they got to touch Star Wars again. But they never made a lot of their products profitable. They kind of had one-and-done IPs. They never built franchises like they did with Star Wars, back in the day. So, and I know they slowly slipped off of that top 5 list before the top 5 were split into every direction.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Don't worry about it. Everybody's just selling their stuff. So before you get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We get woohoo if you do. Boom, especially, and IDW is another one, I think. They always had their eye on Hollywood. So the first chance they are on, selling, basically, it was never like they never wanted to be a comic book publisher. They always wanted to be
It's so bad. That's so bad to hear him say that over and over.
a Hollywood studio, and I think they're going to sell to the first company that comes along. So Random House Publishing Group, a division of the world's largest trade publisher, Penguin Random House, has entered into an agreement to acquire comic book, graphic novel, and licensed storytelling publisher and studio Boom Studios.
That's a lot to say in one sentence.
Boom Studios Publishing will now join the Random House World's portfolio of imprints alongside Del Rey, Inklore, and the RH World's
I was going
licensing
to say, I
program.
thought they had Del Rey. Isn't Del Rey
Science fiction. Del Rey, of course, is pretty famous science fiction publisher back in the day. Before Disney, they actually did publish a lot of Star Wars books and stuff. So, I mean, I guess in that regard, it is a good...
So, pause that for a second. So, Del Rey's actually more famous for signing on to titles. I believe they did Conan, all the Conan paperbacks. I think they did all of the Dune books. They had a much bigger cachet before they ever touched a Star Wars book. And then on top of all that, Star Wars only ever had, I think, 5 books. They had Star Wars. They had Mind's Eye, Splinter of a Mind's Eye. They had Han Solo's Revenge. And I think they had one other one, and then Empire. It wasn't until the 90s that they opened it up for Timothy Zahn to do the trilogy and Courtship of Leia and all of those. So I think he might be a little off with his historical knowledge of, Del Rey, and then it becoming such a big entity, in and of itself as part of this big Penguin Random House, chain. I don't begrudge him for that, because you got to be deep in the weeds to understand a lot of that, when sci-fi was nothing, they were sci-fi.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
I think they publish manga now. I think Del Rey actually publishes manga.
the RH Worlds? Didn't they used to publish with the Star Wars guides and stuff?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's hard to tell. Like anymore, it's like
time.
you've got one, because there are only like 4 or 5 major publishers now, and they've got like so many imprints.
I know Disney's working with Penguin Random House. So.
Yeah, they're handling all the Disney Worldwide publishing books and stuff. So I guess it's like eventually we're gonna have like one publisher, and it's gonna be called Amazon. That's what's gonna happen. The company is gonna retain its editorial and publishing independence, though. Like for now. Reporting to Random House World's president, Scott Shannon. So yeah, they're not firing anybody. There are no plans to relocate Boom from LA.
So that's very interesting, right? They're not firing anybody. They have no plans to relocate.
Which
that's a big deal.
I heard that was, and of course Jesse and I both know Philip. We both know Ross. Our friends aren't talking to us about certain things, and we're not bugging them to ask them about certain things. We'll find out soon enough. But that's when Philip left. Rich Johnson over at Bleeding Cool made such a big deal out of it. Like, oh, anybody hear what's going on over at Boom? I need to get the dirt on what's going on Boom. And I think he was looking for everybody's leaving because they're out of money and they're not paying their employees story. And he wasn't getting that. And from what I understand, Philip has a very good opportunity to do something else. Philip is high up enough in the company and really good friends with Ross to the point where I'm sure he knew this was in the works. I haven't got confirmation on that either way. So, but that's my assumption. So for this to be the narrative when Philip left and all these people are going to get fired because Boom's out of money, and then all of a sudden the sale of the century happens, and then all of a sudden it's a different narrative. Penguin House is going to clean house, and everybody, and Ross is taking his golden parachute and jumping out. It's not even close. They've said it now in the filing for the purchase that they're leaving the office in LA. They're not going to try to control it from Baltimore. I mean, who wants to live in Baltimore anyway? I know we have Baltimore people in the chat. So just the narratives are so far off kilter that we wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, and just keep in mind, in the corporate world, anytime there's a sale of a company that's foreign, right? Because if you have a company in another state, it's actually called a foreign company,
Yep.
believe it or not. They're not going to move. I think there's a lot of things that they need to figure out over the next 6 to 8 months of who they have on the staff, what they serve, and if do they serve a purpose for the new vision going forward. It might be, if you look at the titles, they might have to have some of these titles kind of end before they do any other structuring. Plus, keep in mind, we're in 2024. Do you actually have to move anything when most of your stuff is done socially, virtually? Your printers are in a different state, so it might not even be necessary.
Amen. All right, here we go.
And the company will continue to distribute through both Diamond and Simon & Schuster. Terms of the deal were not disclosed. Transaction is expected to close this summer. So this is Ross Ritchie. It's this is what concerns me, and I want to talk about this because this is everybody's plan. It's every entrepreneur's dream to launch a company, build it, and sell it to the best.
But you should have sold it a few years ago when it was worth more.
I think they tried. I think the pandemic threw a wrench into it.
But I'm just saying, like, now it's not worth as much as it was.
No.
So you're not really winning. But continue.
Again, how does she know that? Like,
Show me charts. I don't even understand. I don't understand. I think it's hard for me to look at animated figures trying to speak a subject like this. But when someone says that, they don't know who Ross Ritchie is at all, which he admitted at the beginning, yet they know his financials from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. 2 years ago would be 2021 sales figures. Once again, something is killing the children. I mean, actually, should we pull up 2021 best graphic novels? I bet you they had Something is Killing the Children, a couple volumes on there. Plus, sure. I think that was Berserker.
Yeah.
Was that?
Yeah,
that was Berserker.
Was out. Yeah.
So I don't even think that they know like that was the beginning of probably 2 solid years of the best sales Ross ever saw. I mean, Jesse, you ever see a smile on Ross's face as big as you've seen the last 2 years?
Believe it or not, I think Power Rangers was up there. I think Power Rangers
those years were great. Oh, God,
yeah. I think Power Rangers as a whole, because of longevity, you would have to look at the longevity there. And keep in mind, there was more stores selling Power Rangers than there were Berserkers and Something's Killing the Children. So, yeah, I would say you are correct, but with Power Rangers being that caveat.
Right.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
I'm excited to hand the reins of Boom over to the best and largest publisher in the world. Their focus on readers and retail partnerships will build upon our work and help our creators achieve more success. Personally, it's time for me to take some much needed time off with my family and explore what's next. So they're keeping the editors. I think he's noping out. This is.
If you gave me a lot of money and I could just nope out, I probably would nope out too.
Well, that's it. That's what's going on. It feels like in general, like all of these comic book publishers, all these independent companies, right? They're all noping out, and everybody gets mad. Like George Lucas sold Star Wars, or Mike Richardson's sold Dark Horse, or this game studio or that game studio sold out. Look at from their point of view, if they've been doing this for like 20 or 30 years, and their family isn't interested in continuing it.
It has nothing to do with if their family's interested in continuing it, but their family has everything to do with their decisions, right? In these situations, and that is the big thing. And as soon as we heard Boom was sold, I think the majority of us here at Beyond Wednesdays, we even talked about it on multiple shows. This is something that we're seeing a big change in how people look at their lives and their work lives in 2024. It's not go work for a company as long as you can and stash away money. No, it's work for your company as little as you can and spend as much time with your loved ones as you can, rather than your workplace.
Exactly. And
Jesse, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so in the comic book industry, the turnover for reps at every single company is tremendous. I would try to figure out what company has had the rep the longest. Reps usually stay with a company for about 1.5 to 2 years. That is when they peak out and they go to the next big thing, or sometimes they go to something
Jesse,
smaller.
let's do some name dropping right now.
Sure.
Chris Delando went from Marvel to ReedPop.
Sure.
James Viscardi went from Marvel to comicbook.com to, I think he's at Image now, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
You know, I forget the other James, but there's the second James over at Marvel. He left to go do something big. You know, then you go to DC. I don't know a single person anywhere at the corporate offices of Warner Brothers that represents DC Comics for the last 2 years. Since
look at
Vince, Stu, all those guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
our industry retention with a company, if I was to interview someone and I look down at their resume and I'd say, holy cow, you with that company for 3 years? You know, why would you want to leave at that point?
Philip was at Boom for how long?
9 years, 10 years.
9 years.
10 years. Yeah.
You know, the new girl, she's been there since COVID. The VP
Morgan.
of sales.
Yeah.
So she's got 4 years in.
Yeah.
The other guy, he's been there 3 or 4 years.
Well, I think the big thing about the comic book industry, it's very small.
Yeah.
You know, when this individual says, well, all these companies are cashing out, all these companies are selling. Well, what companies, name me how many companies in the last 3 years that have sold. It's not a big thing in the comic book industry right now.
So, I mean, I'll break that down. Marvel bought by Disney 16, 17 years ago, wherever that happened.
Yep, sure.
DC got bought by one company and then got broken off and sent to another company and now, you know, went to Discover and then blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
IDW went to bankruptcy twice.
Yeah.
And got bought out and rescued. Dark Horse I think they were about to go into some kind of dire straits when they got their cash boost sale. Boom was number 5. Oh, Image is self-owned.
Yeah.
They don't have a problem. They go wherever they want. They're Image. Love it. They're the only ones without the biggest changes in the industry because they're a different entity. Boom is the only one that didn't go into bankruptcy, didn't have to get bailed out, didn't have any scandals about not paying their artists, didn't have, they didn't go chasing Hollywood movie checks around.
A clean sell.
Yeah. So they're the number 5 publisher, maybe number 4, depending on where Dark Horse was and IDW is. They might have been the number 3 or 4 publisher. And they didn't have any of these problems. They were probably the most solid investment Penguin's made.
Yeah. Yeah. And keep in mind, Marvel and DC are under an umbrella. So I think there's a different essence of selling of a company when you're under an umbrella versus Boom selling direct.
All right, here we go.
And the other option is you just kind of wind it down and shut it down, or it lives on in some form. A lot of people are just going to take that check. You know, they're gonna cash out. I mean,
I would take a lot of money, cash out if people offered me millions and millions of dollars, mostly because I need a break sometimes.
Can I? Let's pause. I'm sorry, Brian. Your finger's on the pause button, but Jesse, you've got a life. I have a life. It took me having my heart attack 7.5 years ago for me to realize that I had the last 7.5 years to spend with my kids, the most important 7.5 years that I probably had and spent. When you talk to Ross, how much of your conversation is about going to volleyball games and going here with his kids and going there with his kids?
Yeah, it's not even a consideration. You might talk about the last second of the phone call, right?
Yeah, about some little aspect of business. Yeah. But the thing is if somebody offered me millions and millions of dollars instead of a heart attack 7.5 years ago, I would have taken it.
Oh yeah, sure.
It's just that I don't know if they know the bigger picture. And I'm not trashing on these guys because I watch their content. If it's something I want to hear about from their perspective, I'll listen to it. I just think that they don't understand the particular topic they're talking about in the bigger scheme of things. For the rest of if they did this about Dark Horse, if they did this about IDW, I'd probably agree with every single thing they said. If I didn't know Ross personally and I didn't respect and love the Boom property, the Boom franchise, and followed it as often as I did.
Right. Well, I think the major thing you want to know about the comic book industry, there's Wednesday when everything comes out, but we're still working all around those Wednesdays, right?
Yeah.
It's just not like, oh, Wednesday something comes out. Here we
what's
go.
this week?
So,
Yeah. What's this week?
yeah.
All right, here we go.
We don't get one.
Yeah, but so I mean, I can on one hand, I can understand why they would do it. I mean, especially like Mike Richardson with Dark Horse. I mean, Mike, he's got to be 70s. He's in his 70s now, so it's probably like,
you're like, at my retirement, I'm done.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, what other retirement plan is there in comics? Let's be honest. The comic book industry will chew you up and spit you out. The mainstream industry. There's so many people that had amazing comic book careers that wound up broke because they didn't own the stuff they worked on. Right.
That's why Peter David is still working and writing multiple books when he's sick. And, I don't want to say, anything bad, but
he also didn't Peter David have a tax problem at one point as well?
But that's what I'm saying. Like, this guy's working when he should not be working. He should be spending time with his family because he's sick and he's old.
And I mean, not to harp on it, but you listen to Ethan Van Sciver in our special cancel culture episode, and Ethan was like, wow, I just got canceled from Main Street Comics. How am I going to feed my children and keep my family with a roof over their head? I'm going to do this other thing. And how many creators, unlike Peter David, went that route and now are so financially independent, they don't need to work for the big two.
Right.
They don't need to beg Image for an indie deal.
Yeah. Well, I think it's. I also think that's what's so good about, what the Comicsgate guys were doing is that they were saying, hey, the biggest hurdle is that everybody tells us is that the creators say, oh, I don't know how to do all this stuff. I don't know how to do it. Well, they would show you how to do it and help you do it and help you on your campaigns. And when Comicsgate was first starting, that's all you saw, which was so good about it. Because that's a big hurdle for a lot of these guys that have worked with those publishers for 30, 40, 50 years,
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think you got to keep in mind, historically, Neil Adams in the late 67, 68 fights for the rights of artists, right? But from that point on, we have to travel, 50 years?
No. You got Image.
No. I'm talking about people fighting for rights for their
but I'm just saying I think the window's a little smaller, Jesse, because you got Neil Adams in the 70s fighting for Siegel and Schuster's rights on Superman and then getting their art back and all that stuff, and then it's a very short 20-year window or less than 20 years before the Image mafia starts up and people start seeing their work.
Yeah, there you go.
Because to me, that was a huge fight because that was we don't want your money, Marvel and DC. We're going to go do it a different way over here. And once those guys got 7-figure checks, there was no looking back.
Yep.
Right. Correct. You are correct on that.
Sorry.
So we do have, no, you're right. So we do have these large spans of 20, 25 years, 30 years in between when the creators say, okay, well, we need to pivot to this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Peter David might be too far into his career now to actually pivot to anything, or no one is there to come in and say, hey, you know about crowdfunding, right? Instead of doing all this, what do you own? Let's put it into a book and let's crowdfund that for you.
And let me just say this about Peter David. I love the guy. We don't agree on philosophically much of anything. We've had some great conversations, and we've had some very cantankerous conversations. Peter doesn't think that he has to do this other thing.
Sure.
And I think his hubris and maybe his ego a little bit didn't understand that he was doing it wrong.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Only people that actually had anything were the people that owned something and they made movie deals or whatever, animation deals, or they sold their company. So I mean, I can't really fault them, but it seems like this is the only the only way out of comics to come out ahead, right? Unfortunately, because of the way the market is right now. Shannon says, over the past several years, Random House Worlds has partnered with Boom Studios on various projects and had the benefit of seeing firsthand their best-in-class comics publishing. So this is interesting. So yeah, they've actually already got an existing relationship with them, and that actually happens sometimes too. We always tell people, like, look at who's working with who. And you can kind of, like, you'll see in hindsight that this was always where things were going to go. Like, if you have two companies that work very closely together and it's like, oh my God, this company bought this other company. It's like, you should be surprised, because going back like 5 or 10 years, you can see that they were constantly working together. Ross and his team have built a dynamic, imaginative home for a diverse and talented roster of creators.
Sorry. It's funny because I remember the industry about 5 or 6 years ago making this weird correlation that he's making now after this statement. Remember when Marvel Comics and Hasbro started doing a lot of, confabs, like putting the comic books in with the blister packs, and they were doing comic book style art on their San Diego exclusives. I remember watching at least 10 different shows, to the point where I was talking to my buddy about all these different shows, saying Disney's going to buy Disney's going to buy Hasbro. Disney's going to buy Hasbro. They don't have a toy division. They're going to make all their toys at Hasbro. And these correlations don't necessarily ever pan out, because it would have been a smart idea for Disney to own Hasbro, but I don't think they want to own a toy company. They're much happy letting the toy people make toys, and they're just sitting off collecting the license fee.
Yep.
The fact that Penguin and Boom work together, why wouldn't you want to work with one of the best publishing houses to work to get your exclusive comic book store product into more bookstores?
Right? Penguin Random House has got to be the biggest publisher in the world. Is there a bigger one?
By far. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, all right, here we go.
Who complain that they don't get paid enough when they have a successful Kickstarter, by the way.
But I'm just saying, that's not the reason to get rid of it. You'll be like, you know what? You deal with these people.
Yeah.
I'm going to replay that.
Who complained. You shouldn't be surprised, because going back like 5 or 10 years, you can see that they were constantly working together. Ross and his team have built a dynamic, imaginative home for a diverse and talented roster of creators who complain that they don't get paid enough when they have a successful Kickstarter, by the way.
But I'm just saying, that's not the reason to get rid of it. You'll be like, you know what? You deal with these people.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, that actually, you know what?
That's what I do.
100%. I honest to God think a lot of, and again, going back to Star Wars, not making it all about Star Wars, but like, I honest to God think George Lucas was like, I don't want to deal with these people anymore.
So they're saying that Ross sold the company just because he didn't want to deal with the people.
And once again, let me tell this story. San Diego last year, I'll tell the brief. I had a 45-minute meeting with the entire Boom sales staff and Lee Bergeo. And the whole time I'm sitting there going, and I'm just talking about my buddy Ross, who I talked to, and they're just like, we don't. I've never met Ross. Oh, you've actually met Ross? Oh, and you're just like, oh God, yeah. Ross doesn't deal with the comic book people. He is doing Ross stuff, and then when he put Philip Sabeck in between the comic division and the Ross Ritchie division, Philip would talk to all of them, and then Philip would just say, hey, Ross, we're doing this, this, and this. When you go meet with Keanu, can you see if he can do this? That was Ross's involvement. Ross wasn't reading Twitter to find out what
the feel is on
what
stuff.
The fans were thinking about the new Power Rangers comic. It didn't.
Yeah, and you wouldn't want him to do that.
No.
The chain of command, when you start getting into a bigger company, more than 25 people, more than, you hit that 50 people mark, the chain of command is very, very important, that you don't overstep by error, right? It's one thing to overstep that no one's watching Twitter. Let me go watch Twitter. Let me come back and say, guys, I need you to get this in line. This is what I see. But in this case, it's chain of command, and Philip had a job, and that was his job to rally the troops and get them in line with the company's goals and standards for the future.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
take this cup from me. It's $4 billion. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'll take $4 billion. $4 billion, and you deal with all the people that have been shitting on me for the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like a fantastic deal because I know they were going after Ross Rich. I know they were. They did the Keanu Reeves Kickstarter, Berserker, and it did gangbusters. It did a couple $1 million. It did the Power Rangers books. Every time they did a big Kickstarter, the same conversation would come up. It wasn't conversations. Basically, Twitter get ass mad. You'd have people like, I worked on a Boombox title from 3 years ago that has nothing to do with Keanu Reeves, but I only got paid $50 a page, and I think I should have gotten more money.
Right, and it's apples to oranges. Has something to do. One has something to do with the other. It's ridiculous.
Right. So yeah, we're thrilled to welcome them to our house.
So just a little. Does anybody know what Boombox is? In the chat, if you ever picked up
that
a
was
Boombox.
their.
So there was a couple people online that were complaining about the Boombox rate. So Ross, or I don't even think Ross probably came up with Boombox. I think it was probably somebody in the side publishing aspect of it. And they were like, hey, let's come up with this cool anthology. We can sell it cheap. We can make it out of newsprint. It'll be magazine size, so we don't have to do, I guess, as much cutting or whatever the reason is. And it'll be a cheap book that we can get more people to check out these one-off stories and blah, blah, blah. You're not going to throw $100 page rates at a newsprint comic that you're probably only making $1 or $2 a book. But that's what it is. Anybody knows that. Yeah. You're not going to get Jason Tynion to do a story for Boombox. You're just not, because he wants the splash page. He wants his own title.
Yep. All right, here we go.
As a creator, you do a Boombox.
It's kind of like for the guys that they're trying out, for the guys that are new in the industry. Yes, that type of thing.
Yes.
Yep. It's like Marvel premiere. What was that? Marvel, the thing that they used to throw the young...
Marvel Fanfare.
Yeah. Throw the young artist on there and let them, learn the ropes in something like this rather than...
Yep.
It's a major step in Penguin Random House's expansion of support to the direct comics market, and a key part of our commitment to being the best publisher for creators across all categories. So this is kind of interesting because Penguin, and I can't keep track of who is distributing what now.
I know, yeah.
But because it used to be everybody went through Diamond, and now it's like, no, Simon Schuster's doing stuff, and Penguin's doing stuff, and then there's Lunar that's doing DC stuff. But it sounds like what's going to happen is we're going to have a lot of publisher distributors. They're going.
I love how forever everybody was complaining that Diamond had a monopoly on this stuff. Yep. And now when we have these new publishers, they're complaining that it's too much of a pain in the ass to try and figure this stuff out. I just wish we were back with just one distributor,
Yeah.
Well, here's the funny part about this part. And I have said this on so many shows over the last, 10, 12 years. I've never had a customer walk up to me, grab a book from the thing, Batman 686, and walk up and say, who distributes this book? Is this by Loon, Penguin, or no one gives a crap, right? They just want the book. And so when this gentleman says, well, I can't keep up with it, why would you? You're obviously you don't own a comic book store, so there's no reason to know who distributes what.
Yeah.
Other than when there was one publisher. Hold on. Just add to that. Other than when there was one publisher, there was only one thing for retailers to either bitch about or blame, and that was just a singular boogeyman, a Kaiser Sose, Diamond Comics.
Yep.
10 comic shops that are actually left, but mostly bookstores. It's so weird. You look at the decimated direct market, and then you go to a Barnes and Noble, and you're like, oh my God, look at all the books.
I know. Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. It was funny. We went to one yesterday, and they had, oh my God, I love that store. I could have stayed there for hours and hours, but they had this huge wall of Harry Potter stuff, books, merchandise, and all stuff. And you posted it, said, look, she's so canceled. Your link's so canceled. And people were like, you said in the comments, it's full because no one's buying it. It's like, sweetie, I was looking at Calico Creators, and I was there for 20 minutes or so standing there. And when I saw several people walk up and either talk about how they wanted to buy this, or they were literally taking stuff off the shelves and walking to the.
Yeah, but those aren't comic books.
No, well, here, but hold on. Let me say something though. I made a lot of comments. I want to say 10 years ago, when Barnes and Noble, is it Barnes and Nobles or Borders?
Yeah, both of them.
Right, Borders.
Well, no, Borders closed 15 years ago, and Barnes and Nobles is the one that's left. Barnes & Noble's built little mini comic book stores in the middle of their store for a while.
Yes.
They were definitely making a run for us.
Yeah,
you know,
look at Hastings. Hastings.
And then
Yeah.
Hastings made a run for us. And guess what the comic industry realized? These guys want returnability. These guys want all of these other things that these 1,200 comic book stores aren't allowed to have. So we'll eat the bullet to try to make this new market. But when these guys fail, we're back to the old ball and chain.
Yep.
The register with it. So no. But anyway.
It's called restocking. I know it's a foreign concept to some people, but when things sell out, you put more on the shelf.
Yes, exactly.
And they would not devote, and I think Aaron Sparrow actually brought that up. He said they would not devote that much shelf space to something that did not sell.
Exactly.
I mean, especially books that are 25 years old, and it was tons. I mean, tons of books, tons of merchandise, whatever. Yeah, totally not canceled. But they said that they actually, they have Berserker, Something is Killing Children, and Lumberjanes, which that's a whole nother, that is a Boom owned thing that a certain person who may or may not have been a showrunner on She-Ra took complete credit for, but it was not their thing.
They were one of many on staff.
One of many.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just, I mean, it's just kind of weird.
Well, can you just pause that for a second? So I listened to enough of these guys' content. They're definitely anti-SJW. For the most part, I don't like the aggressive nature of some of it. But for something like Lumberjanes was such just a lightning in a bottle. Can we make a comic book by women for women? And I actually saw the needle move on women coming into my store to buy this little weird book from this little weird number 6 publisher. And it didn't affect my guy sales at all. It wasn't like they took, Planet of the Apes and turned it into Lumberjanes and we couldn't sell Planet of the Apes comics anymore by Boom. It wasn't like, Penis Thor has had his time and now we have to have Vagina Thor.
Yeah.
It was its own little thing. If you took the time to invest in it, you got a couple of new customers out of it. You got the girlfriend of the store to buy, the store customer to buy a book. It didn't affect anything like that. It was just something, it was additional.
Yeah. It's
and look over in the comments here. UL says Lumberjanes was a big mover for us. It was.
Yep.
Says, how does this affect other publishers like Marvel, Image, and Dark Horse? They're using Penguin too. Now they're going to have unfair bias owning Boom. They haven't had a hit since Berserker and Parrot leaving PR, which is a license.
What? They hadn't had a hit since Berserker.
Something is killing the children.
Yeah.
And by the way, notice this is how far away from the wrist their finger is. I haven't heard the word "something is killing the children" once in this entire 11 minutes. And like we said, the 2023 sales numbers, it had 3 or 4 spots on the top 20 books.
It could just be that they're interested in some of the IP and to make movies or something too. You know what I'm saying? Like, usually when somebody buys a comic book publisher, they're not buying it because they actually want to publish comic books. Let's be honest. Even though they are a publisher, because manga is going to make them a lot more money. They're buying it because it's like, oh, this is some IP that we own now that we can pimp out and make some merch. Do
you think that they? Go ahead.
Can I just stop for a second, Brian? They're talking earlier about a wall full of Harry Potter merchandise at Barnes and Noble's, but they think Penguin Random House is buying Boom so they can make a movie. No, guess who gets to make the wall full of Berserker movie, art books, all that stuff to put in all the Barnes and Nobles when Keanu gets $200 million to make Berserker.
Yep.
Penguin Random House. They now control the wall full of Harry Potter. Because I guarantee you, Titan gets to make a Harry Potter book. Lego Harry Potter is made by Lego. All these publishers that have these side deals with J.K. Rowling's and or Universal or Warner Brothers or whoever owns it, they have to stock their shelves from 20 different publishers to build that wall of Harry Potter. But now Power Rangers, that wall of Power Rangers at Barnes & Noble's is made by Penguin Random House. That wall of Berserker, Penguin Random House. If something is killing the children ever gets to wherever it's going, the wall full of something killing the children is made by Penguin Random House.
There you go.
And it's kind of the same with Dark Horse. Like the reason they bought Dark Horse is they probably wanted the Hellboy because they're making a cheap ass Hellboy movie this fall, which I didn't know anything about. They're making another Hellboy movie.
Yeah, I didn't know about that either until the picture came up.
Yeah, but they have a Hellboy video game in development or had one in development. So they just kind of acquire things. And I really do think that they might have gotten it really cheap. I mean, it could have been Ross Ritchie's just like, yeah, I went out. I went out because I see the future and there isn't much of a future in just publishing comic books. And you guys distribute comic books. Make me an offer. Buy Boom. Take this cup from me so I can go do something else, not have to deal with the Twitter weirdos. But there it is, guys. Everybody's taking their check.
Well, there you go. It shows.
And in the chat, why even bother making a response video to these people? I said it before we started it, and I said it after. They're definitely, Jesse and I literally just had this conversation that it seems in the industry that there's a giant game of musical chairs going on. In no way, shape, or form did we think that applied to Ross, because Ross was going to something else and he gets to do something else now with all of the money he got from that. And he's very happy with the amount of money he got. So he didn't sell it at a discount. But I thought we should take the groundwork of what they were talking about and apply it to everything we've seen on this show, everything we know, so that we can expand on their incorrect information and turn it around into the more correct information that you guys expect from us.
Right. Yeah. And I wouldn't say it's incorrect information. I think it's a low information output of a show, right? They're doing bare basics. They're not really doing any research, but their base that watches them probably doesn't want to hear from me and you. They would want to hear from an influencer who just talks about stuff. So I would say at the end of the day, for their base, they probably love what they said. For someone in the industry who kind of knows a little bit about comic books, it's very easy to come back and say, well, out of your 11 minutes, 7 minutes, you were technically wrong. But that's just from low information and actually just being your opinion.
Well, once again, experiencers versus influencers.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
And here's the thing. And Leif Erikson, thanks for discovering America. We appreciate it. But Jesse, are you spending more money buying comics this year or less money buying more comics this year?
Well, I think the answer is number one, we are having our greatest year. We're already on track to triple our year from last year, which we doubled our year from last year. So when I do hear people say the industry is what delusional comic book industry is dead, what part of the industry is dead? That's the important part. Are you talking about comic books as a whole? Are you talking about new issues? What are you talking about? Are you talking about graded books? Are you talking about anime? And so when people say the comic book industry is dead, not in my world. And I can show you real numbers. I'm not afraid to show my numbers. This is a great time to be in the comic book industry. But let me answer your question. The question is, I am buying more, but I'm buying smarter than I have in the past, right? So instead of going out and spending, $300,000 on a collection, I can go spend $90,000 on a collection and do $500,000, or I can buy a collection for $300,000 and hope I make $20,000. So it's about being smart, and it's finding those collections out there that make sense to what you're trying to sell to your customer base and what they're asking you for.
Well, and just as I'm listening to what you're saying and listening also to what Leif's saying, the perception if you're listening to the influencers and you're listening to certain stories, yes, the comic industry portions are dying. The speculation market is shriveling. Okay. The new comics market is shriveling.
Yep. Big publishing houses are shriveling.
But distributors are shriveling.
Yeah. But
Diamond is
crowdfunding is going crazy.
But crowdfunding is through the roof.
Yeah.
Back issues are through the roof.
Yep.
my business model of comics for normies is through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
so it depends on what segment. Now, Jesse, are you making more money than you made last year? You just said you were tripling.
Oh, by far.
Yeah.
And
I'm making
here-
more money than I was last year.
And here's
year
the
before.
great thing about this. Here's the great thing about this, Dennis and Brian, is I have an 8,000 square foot store 2,200 miles away from me. My studios in Florida does 10 times more the business in 100 square feet than it does in 8,000 square feet. Now, the 8,000 square feet is great because I get to buy a lot of collections. It's fun. I've had it for a long time, and it's my dream store, and it will remain there. But when it gets down to the actual concept of where comics are today, there's no better time that I can think of in my 42 years to be selling because of all the platforms that are out there that allow you to be successful.
Yeah, so Leafs asked, is it sustainable without many new good titles garnering interest in selling out? And that's a great question because, we talk about how big back issues are. And if we're not replenishing that somewhat, right? I know we'll always have those ones, but we got to kind of keep adding to it. And if we're not adding good collectible, good stories to,
It's kind of funny, Brian, when Blood Hunt, is that what the name of that?
Yeah, Blood Hunt.
As Blood Hunt kind of hit a brick wall and just everything fell off.
Yeah.
X-Men 97 ended, and I couldn't keep Jim Lee era X-Men on the shelf, on my $5 shelf and my $2 shelf. I couldn't keep Uncanny from that era on my shelf. I'm selling $15 Uncanny X-Men hollow foils from what's the storyline? Where he pulls the adamantium out of Wolverine.
Yeah.
Separation anxiety.
Yeah.
I'm getting 10 to 15 for these, and I have boxes full of them. I couldn't sell them a month ago, and now everybody wants to have separation anxiety.
Yeah, I don't know where my box is. I just bought 100 copies of those.
Yeah. Why not?
Great buy. Yeah.
But the thing is they were $1 book a month ago.
Right. But I think if we go back on what Leaf had said, notice how all of a sudden his conversation is about new issues. How do you sustain new issue sales? So as a whole, this is why I have a problem, because our verbiage sometimes doesn't match what someone is saying. So if an influencer goes out there and says the industry is dead, but they don't actually specifically tell you what part of the industry is dead. And Leaf, I'm not saying anything negative about you, but I'm just saying as a whole, we get this concept, oh, the industry's dead. No, maybe that part of the industry has shrunk, but look at Kickstarter, crowdfunding, live streaming, eBay, all these places, conventions. We've had more conventions this year than we've had last 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. I will agree that the new issue part of the comic book industry has shrunk. Now, the question is always, do you want to print 300,000 copies of a book and only sell 50,000, or do you want to print 60,000 and sell 55,000, which is better, right? And so that's what you have to decide what is good for your business.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of,
I'm looking up something right now, but I wanted to speak on that real quick for a second, Brian. Yeah, right here. So, Jesse, you lived through the collapse of the industry during probably one of the biggest periods of time. Brian, I'm going to throw this into the chat and you could pop around on it. 1999 was the low point for comic sales in America. And when we get up here, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. New books. Oh, did they get rid of the column? Oh, you're going to have to go to a month to see what the sales were. But in 1999, the collapse had happened. We went from 10,000 comic stores to 2,000 comic book stores. Yep. You're going to have to go to monthly sales.
What do you want? What month do you want to see?
Just any. It doesn't matter. Anything in 1999 is going to tell you the story that that basically go August.
That's where I'm at.
Okay. The number one selling book in August of 1999 was Uncanny X-Men at 116 units. By the time you get to 10, you've already lost 40,000 units with Earth X. Okay. Which was a huge book. You see it in a ton of dollar boxes. 20,000 units, you lose another, or 20,000 units less, you're at the top 20. Okay. Then you go down to like 100. 100 is 28,000. You go down to 200. 6,000 units for Liberty Meadows, number 2, which was a huge indie book.
Yeah.
So we are in a very huge, steep decline because we've gone from those 2,000 stores to probably 1,500 less stores, but down to like 500 original of those 2,000. And then we've added maybe another 700 stores to that. So, we're looking at 1,200 stores. We've lost 800 net stores from that period of time. And our numbers are almost the same as what's going on in the comic industry right now as compared to 1999.
Right.
So, yes, as I will definitely say, new books have slumped. And in 1999, what came out? Does anybody know the biggest thing in the world that came out in 1999?
Pokemon.
No.
Comic stores that bought into Pokemon survived 1999. They survived 2000. They survived 2001. And then guess what came out in 2001? Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yep.
And that's when comic stores rebound.
Yep.
You had Magic was kind of off and on during that time. Pokemon was a giant windfall. If you held out for the 2 years after onto Pokemon's coattails, you came out of it. Yeah, Magic did really good, but there was no stellar sets that were coming out during that time. It was just a consistent, hey, Magic is a thing.
Right.
But Pokemon and Ultimate Spider-Man, I think, saved the comic store model. And that's just my, once again, experiencers versus influencers. I get it, Leaf, but there's other factors that a comic store is going to be able to look at it from other facets. And right now, Jesse and I are doing huge without 0 new books from me, a handful of new books from Jesse.
Yep.
I don't speculate buy, so that doesn't apply to my business model. If it's not sitting in my warehouse in a box, I don't care.
Yeah, I always let people know in a very simple way to put this. In 2012 to 2015, I was probably one of the largest single store owners in the world for new issues. My bill every week was $15,000 to $20,000 during every week. But what we found now that we actually only order about 200 books a week, about 150 go into pull boxes that we pre-invoice the night before. They have 2 days to pay for it. They can pick it up any time that we want. And we actually are making technically more money with 200 books that we order versus those $10,000 to $15,000, $20,000.
And I'll add one. Can I add one more thing to your business model knowledge, Jesse?
Yep.
And you do one sale on Tuesday night, and it probably makes you more profit than you make off of those 200 books.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so different day and age. I think if you go into the 90s, I think it's very tough for me to even go back to the 80s when I started in 1982 selling in a comic book store, that the dynamics and the platforms are different. Number one, in the 80s, we had no platforms, right? In the 90s, what was your platform? Wizard magazine?
Yeah.
Band magazine? You get your Overstreet once a year. We hit
Comic Collector magazine.
Wizard sold a lot of comics. It sold a lot of comics, man, because
it
sold a lot of Wizards, but then it also helped bring a lot of comic shops down.
It did.
Yeah.
Because when people opened up that Wizard in 1997 and saw that their brigade number 3 was worth $10, but they couldn't get a nickel for it,
Yep.
that's when the industry started collapsing.
Yep. Yeah. Well, again, different platforms that you're selling at, till then, I remember buying comic books from people in 1982 and having no idea what the price was. A AF-15 near mint in 1982 was worth $1,500. It was the most expensive comic book at that time. It was actually worth more than an Action #1, which was a little bit below that. I'm sorry, Action #1 was still worth more. I'm thinking Marvel and DC, but AF-15 was only $1,500 at the time. So we really didn't have a gauge, and most of that stuff we bought just went into boxes in the back room. Right? Comic book store I worked in, listen, as a 12-year-old, I thought that store was 8,000 square feet. When I went back to go buy about 10 years ago, I realized it was only 500 square feet.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm like, what the hell am I thinking of?
This is a great story too, guys. 1982. Do you know what comic book came out and sat on every book, every comic shop's back issue wall for at least the next 8 to 10 years?
What was that?
The Life and Times of Pope John Paul II.
That was
a huge wall book.
Yeah.
And here's the reason why. $1.50 cover, or was it $1 or $1.50 cover?
I want to say $1.50 actually.
Yeah, $1.50. Very, very expensive book for someone to come in, especially for a kid to come in and actually not see a superhero or action hero on a cover. To spend $1.50, that was a very big challenge then.
You know who that book was? I believe that book was Nick Barucci's very first comic he ever purchased.
We never asked Nikki that, and that's one of my favorite books to talk about.
Yeah.
What's funny is major issue comics. So Wolverine #1 comes out, and so back in the day, comics came out on Friday. You would get your shipment around 4 or 5 o'clock, and keep in mind we did not know what was coming out in the 80s at all. And so this 12-year-old, myself, everybody would come in, these 15 to about 25-year-olds, and they'd stand around as I opened up boxes. And I remember opening up the Wolverine box #1 and putting it up and saying, okay, who wants Wolverine #1? And everybody's like, what's a miniseries? What do you mean there's only 4 issues? And I'm like, I'm 12 years old, dude. I just know this is from one of the Bruce Lee movies. It's a homage cover from one of the Bruce Lee comics. And that's how that sold. And you are right. That book actually stood on the shelves for a while. And so that was a different time. But I think as you get into modern times, you will see that sales are kind of, it's a different way to look at how product is selling versus back there in the masses versus here we're now working in turn rate ratios.
Here's some prices on some major books from different eras. So Action 1 in 1977 and 78 in near mint condition or mint condition was $52.50, so $5,000. Yep. In 81 and 82, so he'd jumped to 11,500. In 86 and 87, it went to 18,500, and so that's pretty good. Yeah. Batman #1 in 78 was $1,800 for a mint copy.
Didn't that just sell for like $1 or $2 million?
Yeah. Detective 27 was $3,600 in 78. AF-15 in 1978, $255 in 1978.
Yeah.
So
there's a famous picture of me actually throwing an AF-15 around with a buddy in the back room. And I'll get that. And next show we'll put it up. And you can see us, we're just tossing it around like it's nothing, right?
Giant size X-Men, 1978, $1. 1982, $60. 1987, $70. Hulk won.
And I know that.
I was going to say real fast, Dennis, keep in mind, these prices back then, those are high prices.
Yeah. This is dealers trying to set the price.
Yep.
Okay. So the real shifting price was way less than a lot of these. Like I'll guarantee you, if you open up one of the comics from one of those years, you're going to find Mile High sales catalog on one of the pages, and almost every one of those books will probably be $3 to $5 cheaper than what these books will say on like a $20 book.
So you know what's crazy about this? The highest priced book out of all these books, guess what it is?
A Marvel Comics #1.
You got it. Marvel Comics #1 was
used to be. Remember when I was talking?
$23,000
It
in
was on one of the previous
1987.
shows. It used to be talked about as the comic to get.
Yep.
Yep.
And
$23,000 in
somehow that cachet
87, and Action Comics in 87 was worth 18,000. So
Yeah.
$5,000 more than Action Comics Marvel Comics #1 was.
Yeah. And of course, that great Venture Brothers episode where they have a CGC 98 Marvel Comics #1.
Wow.
Yeah, it would be very interesting if we knew where that comic sold, if it was sold at Christie's or somewhere, to actually figure out
These
how
aren't
that market
these aren't
was set with
sales.
that number.
These are Overstreet price guide values.
Yeah. So back in the day when the Overstreet advisors in the 70s and 80s really didn't have anything to go on other than convention sales, Christie sales, there wasn't a lot to gauge a book, and it was gold. I mean, whatever it sold for, that was the price.
Yep.
And it did not change for another year, right?
Yeah.
So we had 52 weeks, and then
It wasn't like, no, check the eBay comps. Check the eBay comps.
Exactly.
This book has gone up.
Yeah, exactly. And so you really had to gauge customers when they came in and said, well, what do you think it's worth? Right. And go from there. So I think it's a crazy world. Now, keep in mind, and I want to be very transparent here, we weren't talking about keys in 1982, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91. We weren't talking about buying keys. Right, your job was to complete your Uncanny X-Men collection, your Teen Titans collection,
Amazing
and your
Spider-Man.
Daredevil collection.
Yeah.
Those were the three biggest selling books during that age. Perez, Miller.
You were allowed to skip. You were allowed to skip and start at Giant Size X-Men 1 and Uncanny 94 if you only wanted to read Byrne and Claremont.
Uncanny 94 was more than Giant Size #1 for the longest time.
It was because everybody bought all the giant sizes, but nobody thought
they looked at it as an annual.
Resurrect.
Or a one shot. It wasn't part of the regular run. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So the other big story that's been going around lately that we've been hearing a lot of people talking about is San Diego Comic-Con moving. Of course, we've got San Diego Comic-Con coming up in a little less than almost a week now. We're going to be
a week from tonight. Everybody will be setting up their booths, and a week from tomorrow will be preview night.
Yep. So a week from tomorrow, we'll be driving to San Diego that morning. So I'm really excited for this. But this is a very interesting conversation because I look at it very selfishly, in a selfish way, but to hear you guys talk about it is very interesting. And what we're talking about, guys, is that Comic-Con is their lease is up in 2024, I believe, right? So they're threatening to leave. They're threatening to leave in 2026. Yep. And a lot of people are saying they're going to go to Vegas. And this is a post that was recently posted on CBR. It says San Diego Comic-Con is staying put for now, but never say never, the organizer says, which is very interesting. The organizer isn't putting his foot down and saying, no, we're not going to move, which that means a lot. San Diego Comic-Con, it says, as reported...
Quick, Brian, let me change you just for a second, and Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong. But there is no one organizer for Comic-Con. Since the 80s, it's been a group, a collective organization that runs and maintains Comic-Con. So there is no one organizer. There is a board of director organizers.
So this is from, it's not going to let me do it, from the Mercury News. Comic-Con's Chief Communications and Strategy Officer, David Glanzer, confirmed on Wednesday that the company agreed to a 1-year extension with the San Diego Tourism Authority to stay in San Diego, but was willing to commit to inking to a 2-year contract, which is crazy to me. In good faith, this is what he says. In good faith, we decided to sign this contract for 1 more year with the understanding we could meet our room block needs for 2026, he told the Mercury News. But for 2025, we are still far below where we'd want to be in our hotel rooms. San Diego Comic-Con is one of the most popular summer events with big entertainment announcements coming each year, but it's been called the Hotel Apocalypse to describe how cutthroat and competitive it is to get a hotel room at the event. So that's very interesting. And guess what, you guys? Where is the biggest city for hotel rooms.
Yep. Yeah.
What is it,
Vegas is amazing. So let's put this in perspective. San Diego Convention Center, there's about 14,500 rooms available every year. In Las Vegas, there's 100. I'm trying to do this off the top of my head without looking at my notes. But in Las Vegas, there's 154,035 rooms available. All right. So that's a big bump right
In
there.
Vegas, there's how much?
Vegas has 154,035 available rooms. Now, this is hotel rooms. That's not motels, it's hotels. So now you throw into the motels and you're about 300,000 rooms.
And I just pulled up Priceline.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Priceline. This is for, I don't know if you can see me there. Okay. There's for the Bayfront.
Yeah.
Okay, $666 a night, you devils. Then you've got International, or is that the Intercontinental?
Yeah.
Okay, 400 and something.
Yeah.
Okay, 190, and I guarantee you this is a flop house in Mission Valley. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like
away.
The Hotel Indigo in San Diego off the gas lamp is 672.
Right.
San Diego Mission Valley is 400. That is 4 miles away. That is a tough 4 miles to travel during Comic-Con because all the roads are closed in front of the convention center. You know, it's insane. And these people have the Manchester Grand Hyatt off of the gas lamp is $700 a night.
Yep.
The hotels have been gouging. They don't abide by the rules that the whatever they call it, the tourist commission in San Diego. Right. They don't abide by the rules.
First of all, it's very hard to say that San Diego Con can dictate how much prices are for rooms. That's the first thing. So you have to understand that part.
Right.
People are going to find a way to go. That's just part of the business. There's twofold here. If you're going and I'm going to buy some books and the rooms are $350 a night, oh, cool. It is what it is. But if I'm a retailer and I have to go spend $10,000, yet my room is costing me $4,000, that's your first $8,000 worth of product is just.
But can I also speak for Vegas? Vegas loves having cheap rooms. Do you know why?
Yeah.
Because if Vegas gets you into their cheap room, the odds that you're going to lose the extra money you'd probably spend on a San Diego room are pretty high down in the casino below you.
Oh yeah, by far. Yeah. The rooms is like third on their list, probably fifth on their list to where they actually make money on. Yeah. The whole object of Las Vegas is you have a convention center that you can now sell 400,000 tickets if you want. Yeah. And that convention center will still have 4 more conventions selling ceramics down the end of the hall because
just imagine so much space. Just imagine instead of Hall D, you have James Gunn unveiling the new Superman in the Sphere.
Yep.
Where U2 just played the week before.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and keep in mind the bigger picture is there's 7,000 plus restaurants within 10 miles away of the convention center. 7,000. If you try to pull up the numbers for places to eat, I'm not talking about restaurant, just Subway. You're less than 150 places to eat in San Diego convention area. So it bodes well. The city will spend so much money in advertising. Flights are much cheaper. Car rentals are much cheaper. The train goes right there.
The airport is bigger.
Yeah. And so when you look at this opportunity, here's the big question. The first thing a company would always ask if they're moving, what is the cost to move? What is the cost to move to San Diego Con? What, some banners?
Yeah.
Right? So you need some banners, and you need probably 2 office spaces, and they probably work remote anyways.
Maybe Penn and Teller have their big sign on the side of the Rio turned into the Walking Dead one week.
You know,
that's it.
So I see people, shout out to John Horn, big supporter of Beyond Wednesdays. He says, the con should move to Vegas, no doubt. What do comic collectors owe San Diego? And here is what my thoughts are on it. And I remember I had this conversation with Jesse. I look at San Diego as the half of going to San Diego Con is going to San Diego, right? Okay. The location is such a big deal for me to get out of the heat, you know, for me to go and enjoy the Gaslamp District, for me to go be by the ocean. Like, that's a big part of going to San Diego Con. If they move to LA and I got to go to LA in this Las Vegas, if they go to Las Vegas and I got to go to Las Vegas in the summer, are you kidding me? That's just as bad as Phoenix.
But who says San Diego, or who says Comic-Con has to be in July?
That's the thing. So if they move it to winter, okay, I'm in. But I'm not going to... I don't go to Phoenix Con because I don't like going standing in the heat in the summertime. They make people stand outside and stuff. I'm not doing that. No. You know? I'm not going to do that in Vegas. I'm not going to go stand in line outside. My answer to John
in the chat was, what does comic collectors owe San Diego? Well, first of all, they don't put San Diego on for comic collectors. First of all, John, I'm sorry to tell you. Second, nostalgia. Because all of you little Comic-Con Hulkamaniacs out there all have wanted to go to Mecca, and you feel the pilgrimage starts from your house to San Diego. And the nostalgia of hearing every story of Jesse going since 1982 and me going and all the stories I have and Bryan and his coverage over the last several years, that has built a nostalgia. Oh, we have to go to Comic-Con in San Diego. We have to go to San Diego. I guarantee you within 2 or 3 years in Las Vegas, you won't even remember San Diego. It's just like when we argued about the El Cortez a couple weeks ago and the hotel that was after the El Cortez. And it's just like, at a certain point, I guarantee you 90% of everybody at San Diego has no idea that there's an El Cortez unless their room key says it.
Yep. Yeah. So I think as a collector, you got to keep in mind, when San Diego Comic-Con started, it was a place where collectors went. They met some artists, they met some creators. You had some Star Trek cosplayers there. That was probably the extent of cosplay. Probably started in that area.
Can I pause you for a second, Jesse?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you know this story or not, Jesse. Do you know why why Comic-Con's in San Diego?
Why is San Diego? Why is it in San Diego?
Well, because a certain gentleman retired out to San Diego with his mother and father, who put on the first Detroit convention, and his parents had to move to San Diego for better climate. And he lived there, and he met up with all those guys that started it, Richard Alf and all of those early San Diego Comic-Con veterans, and said, hey, do you guys want to go meet Jack Kirby? And he had been talking to Jack since the Detroit days, and he knew where Jack lived, and he contacted Jack, and he took them all up to, I think Jack was in southern Los Angeles, whatever town that is. Yeah. Yep. And they drove up one afternoon, and then after they met Jack, they're like, we should have a convention down here and bring Jack down.
Yep.
And that's why San Diego Comic-Con started, because Shel Dorf, the true founder of San Diego, knew Jack Kirby, and they wanted to bring Jack Kirby to San Diego and have a convention.
Yeah, so it was really a place just to meet artists, creators. They weren't really, you didn't go and see boxes of comics being sold, right? You technically had to bring comics, even though I do have my very first picture. And it's funny because if you look at this picture, I don't know if you can see this picture, but this is the first Comic-Con, 1982 I went to, 1980. Actually, I think this might be 1983. But I have a stack of 25 Star Wars #1s. And then I have a stack of Wolverine #1s. And that was kind of the convention, right? I don't remember seeing anything else to buy. But you went to some cool panels. There was one cool panel there. And as it started to evolve and comics started to fill those rooms, there was this essence that they could get more space if they sold to a bigger company, a brand name that might sell toys, and Hasbro and all that. Oh, so we'll bring in toys. Oh, we'll bring in stuffed animals. We're bringing in
knock. Hey,
Yeah.
we're Hollywood. We're just a couple miles north of you. Can we come down and talk about our new movie?
Yep, exactly. So comics have all throughout the decades has just been pushed aside. It's still one of the biggest part in the area in the con, but you don't walk out buying a lot of comics anymore. As far as comics at all, you're kind of buying into the experience of being there. Standing in line for 3 hours for a freaking $5 mini mate at Star Wars, that's who does that, right? But people do. But the experience of being there. So I think them moving to Vegas and all of a sudden you have a 24-hour setting, right? Where there's no longer, well, I got to break down my table and I got to do this. Don't worry about it. We're not even eating till 11 o'clock. That's the difference there. Being able to afford it, being able to bring your family, being able not to have to be in a lottery to get tickets.
Yeah.
You know, I literally will tell you, if it's in Las Vegas, you will be able to walk up and buy tickets.
Yep. No. So let's just go with the verdict here. I mean, Brian, your verdict is as long as it's not in July in Las Vegas.
I'm good with as long as it can't be. I saw people saying October. It's even hot in October, you guys. Yep. Phoenix and Vegas and don't start cooling down till November. Period.
Once Elon opens that tunnel, we'll get some of the Los Angeles air into Phoenix, right? That's how that works.
We don't need any more Los Angeles transplants of any kind. I don't even want the air over here.
Yeah.
I'm in favor for it because here's my problem. I love San Diego. It's a great place to visit. I hate being fleeced going to San Diego. My daughter got to go to San Diego for the first time last year. She was supposed to go the year after I had my heart attack, and then COVID, and then one thing after another. Last year was the first year she got to go. She was thoroughly disgusted by it. She's like, Jesus, it's not worth it. And I was like so glad because I don't have to take my kids to Comic-Con anymore.
It's really changed. And I can talk about this pretty well. I started going to Comic-Con back in the early 2000s, and I stopped as soon as Hollywood started getting into it because it turned into a nuts to butts type situation. Before Hollywood got involved, there was so many dealers selling comics. I remember the last year before Hollywood got there, 2006 or 2005 or something like that.
Sure.
I remember coming home with like 9 long boxes of dollar books that I just got stuff to, and I filled my collection, filled my runs, right?
And the big dealers used to bring trucks full of comics to restock every day.
Yes. Yep. And then once Hollywood started getting there, and it became less about comics and it became more about just crowds and standing in line. Well, and I hate standing in line.
I'll tell you the year I think San Diego's truly changed for the worse. I was at a booth called Ultrarama. I was asked, hey.
Shout out to Sanjo. Appreciate that. He's just gifted 5 memberships. Congratulations to everybody that has been gifted memberships. That is a big deal. Thank you so much.
So in the year 2000, I believe it was 2000, it might have been 2001, whatever year the movie The Time Machine came out. And I was there with a company called Ultrarama, and I had an actor signing. I had a couple actors signing all over the convention. This was when I was a booking agent. And we had a little 10x10 booth. And on the other side of the 10x10 booth was a 40x40 display for The Time Machine. Everybody remembers that movie, right? The
original.
No.
the
I'm talking
original.
about that stupid one that was made with the guy from Memento.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And in the middle of this 40 by 40 was the time machine. And they had 4 obelisks on each corner. And off in the corner, I'm walking by every time I went on a smoke break. I was walking by. Meanwhile, I'm walking by a 10 by 20 with the original Barris screen used Batmobile shoved off in a corner.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in the middle of this booth, off in one of the corners, I'm like, is that Stan Winston? And I walk into the booth because I'd walked past it a million times. And I go in there and it's Stan fucking Winston sitting at a table. And he's just sitting by himself at a table.
Yeah.
And in this giant 40 by 40. And nobody knows it's Stan fucking Winston.
Yeah. That's how it was with Steranko the last year I went. I mean, it was... And TLC Comics says San Diego was always an entertainment... TLC Comics says San Diego... He says San Diego was always an entertainment con. And I disagree with that. The first years that I went, it was not about the first 4 years that I went, it was not about entertainment. It was about comic books.
Yep.
Which I guess if you want to say that's entertainment, yeah, you're right.
There was only 25 tables. So it really did not evolve until 95, maybe 96. And so Hollywood came in about 2005, 2006, 2007.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is at that 2000, 2001 show, and if somebody in the chat can look up when the Time Machine came out, it was that year. They bought that 40 by 40 so they could sit FX legend Stan Winston in a corner for nobody to see him, and they didn't bat an eye at writing that check. And once Hollywood realized we can take up a giant swath of land in this geek mecca to money change, for lack of a better word, to promote our movie. And meanwhile, a comic dealer who's like, I want to get my money together so I can set up and sell at San Diego. Oh, I'm sorry. We just sold 16 booths to Universal Studios to promote their shit movie that's going to flop in 2 weeks after the convention.
That's actually the wording on that is they did not renew 16 tables.
Right.
So someone who had those tables, they said, listen, that's great, but we don't need you anymore.
And as Hollywood said, wait, we want 16 booths. Oh, I'm sorry, we're sold out. Well, we'll give you 5 times that per booth.
Sure.
Okay, don't renew these 16 dealers.
Right.
You're right.
Well,
no. And then the price goes up, and then the price goes up. And as Hollywood comes knocking, that price went through the roof. And then Chuck Rosansky's like, I'm not paying this anymore, and writes a 20-page, manifesto.
Right. But do you recall what happened there? He said, I'm not coming down next year. And then a comic book store called them up and said, I will send you cash right now. I will take the booth. Where do I wire this to? And then 20 minutes later, Chuck is like, well, we're then go one more year, right? Because he found out who was then by their booth.
And now look who's got his booth.
Yeah.
Brian
Pulido. Brian Pulido. That's hilarious. Yeah. The thing about Emerald City, that's a little bit different because even the summers are not really hot.
Yeah.
Right. So
well, here's the problem with Emerald City. And I can say this too because I spent all my summers growing up going to Seattle. We would spend like 3-4 days in Seattle, and then we would go spend 2 weeks at my uncle's place in Puget Sound. And we did that for, 10 years, something like that, more. Yeah. And Seattle was my favorite place in the country by far. It was so beautiful. The air was clean. It was just everything about Seattle and that part of the country. I went to Emerald City Comic Con 2 years ago, and it was one of the worst con experiences I've ever had. The entire city smelled like urine and feces. Yeah. It was the amount of drug use that was used on the street, and this isn't coming from somebody that's a uppity Republican. You know, I'm a former heroin addict, and when you got a former heroin addict that's saying the drug use was too much for him, that's a lot. You know, I mean, it was really bad, and I'm telling you, you have to clean that up if you want families to bring people to those cons.
And guys, remind me to tell you in the after show the dirt I have about something involving Emerald City that I got word up.
And keep in mind, you're talking about a city that their biggest attraction is a wall of gum on the wall. So keep that in mind, right? So it's a wall on the wall or gum on the wall or catching fish with trying to catch fish. Great. I lived in Seattle for 4 years and the weather. So the weather, a little bit different story there. It's you know, you then get there, it's always raining, at least a light sprinkle there. But Emerald City, inside the con is great. And a lot of people do. If you go to Baltimore Con, you got to be careful what streets you walk down afterwards, man.
You have a 2 to 4 block buffer and you're in shitville.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so
even a block away, if you're there after a certain period of time at night over by the wharf, play a fun game called Count the Rats.
And they're big.
And they're huge. You can't miss them.
Yeah. So I think everybody judges their experience at a convention differently. Some people say, oh my gosh, the con inside was great. And that's all their experience. Some people, you know, artists, not a lot of artists are out and about eating. They're trying to get all their commissions done, right? So it is a crazy situation, but I think if they go to Las Vegas, you have this.
It will be very difficult. Hold on. It will be very difficult to tell the hookers and the people collecting $1 for photographs and just the cosplayers, though. That might be the worst. That might be the worst problem you have in Las Vegas. Yeah,
exactly. You're, you know, getting home and your 12-year-old has, hey, I got a picture with Harley Quinn. Well, no, you don't. No. No, you do not. So I think at the end of the day, it's a great thing. Las Vegas would embrace it. And I think, and they are smart. They are some smart cookies there. They know what works. And you have the difference between San Diego Comic-Con, it's not a ceramic con. It's not a magic con where they're selling clothes and all that, where the con can go literally 24/7. It could literally go nonstop.
Jesse, let me ask you a question, though. As a person who's been going to San Diego as a 12-year-old boy in 1982 or 83, you've seen it change from the biker sailor bars of San Diego 1983 to they started renovating the 90s downtown gas. They started at the gas lamp and kind of spread out. They built that amazing library. They've changed the ballpark from the old Padre Stadium to the beautiful Petco Park. San Diego Comic-Con, and what I've been told, is literally responsible for all of that. Nothing else that San Diego had.
Let's put it in simple terms. In simple terms, $165 million was produced by San Diego Comic-Con last year. That brought in $3.2 million in taxes to just the city itself. Now, let's break this down into $165 million in a week. Well, MGM Hotels in Las Vegas a week does $42 million. That's just MGM. That's 12 hotels.
$6 million a day.
Yeah. So imagine how much business that $165 million, that might be a Saturday.
Yeah.
Right. But if you take the whole 6 days, you're looking at a $400-500 million injunction.
Think of the dealers that get to set up at LVCC, or whatever they call it, Comic-Con Las Vegas, and the dealers that are set up there, the vendors that are set up there, who everyone in that convention just paid $500 less a night for a hotel. They paid $100 less for parking. You know, you start adding up all of those. What?
To fly there, it's cheaper to drive there. You know,
yeah. So add up all of that extra money in the attendees' pockets.
Right.
And that's more money for San Diego to make. You know, I'm sure they'll raise the price a little bit on a 5-day pass.
Right.
But for the most part, every one of those dealers, every one of those vendors, every one of those corporations that comes in there is going to make so much more money.
Oh yeah, by far.
And they don't want to pay. And they don't want to pay the hotels in San Diego.
And they don't have to raise the price.
vendors,
They don't have to raise the price because you're going to have more people going now because it's a bigger convention.
You always have to raise the price, though, Brian. Come on.
Yeah, and so that really becomes, because you got to keep in mind, that's a sports town now, right? So if you go into November, you got are you going a week where the Raiders are playing? All right, 2026, the A's will
Raiders
be there,
are there,
right, Brian? Is 2026 or 2027?
Well, we're waiting to find out. But also, you have the hockey team in November that's playing. That's just getting started, and the hockey teams sell out. So
but we were talking about this in the chat before. Las Vegas is the only place where you can have 3 major events that would cripple a normal town, and they still have plenty of room for gamblers to come in and give them money.
Oh yeah, by far.
You could pick there was one weekend in Detroit where the Tigers were still in the pennant race. Hockey had just had opening week, the opening day of hockey, and the Lions had just started the season. All in Detroit, and Detroit might as well have been a stammering mess. It was just no parking. You couldn't eat at any restaurant. You couldn't go into any bar. That doesn't happen in Vegas ever.
Well, here's the other crazy thing. Jordan says we also have F1 now in November, which is they shut down all the streets for that. By the way, Jordan also asked.
That was a disaster last year, and Jordan, there's going to be a lot of changes for that.
Jordan also asked if we're going to have Beyond Wednesday shirts at San Diego this year. Nope. Unfortunately, no Beyond Wednesday shirts at San Diego this year, but I am working on them. So that is a must-have before the end of the year.
Yeah, brand. You know, it's funny. It's branding. You don't see branding for live shows is a very interesting thing. Because some of these shows I do watch live, they don't have hats, they don't have scarves. But not that we would do scarves, but in the comic book world, it's kind of like, why don't we have hats? Why don't we have shirts? And I should say in the collectible
hey
world,
guys,
right?
I should probably tell you now, I'm bringing a hat to San Diego.
Okay.
And I'm gonna have some. You're gonna have to find me at San Diego. It's real easy. Check the smoking area about every hour. And out in front of, I think usually it's around Hall D. I usually hang out. But I've got trivia questions from the show.
Ooh.
And I've got swag and merch. So and it's all free. So find me.
That's cool.
I wonder, something that we can intertwine is Boom Studios. Whose booth is that?
It's still Boom's booth. From what I understand, because Boom already had their schedule laid out and they had their booth approved. As you know, from San Diego, those corporate booths are approved back in February.
Sure.
So, and they're built months in advance. They're already in boxes.
Right.
I guarantee you, they were already in crates.
Right. I'm curious what, I guess the basic concept is Ross part of that, or is that... well, no, yeah, exactly.
Because he told me he told us all on Facebook, find me. You have to find me if you want to see me at San Diego. So
that will be very interesting because they did something that you've seen a lot of publishers do, where you go up to the window and you only see one item, right? And you write down the numbers and you say, okay, I'll take 5 of these, 4 of these, 3 of these, and they go in the back and they pull that, which is very, very efficient. You have to, folks, I will tell you, when that happens, don't pay for the book until you look at the condition of the books, because those guys grabbing the books could care less about condition. So always check that. There's a couple of big things happening with exclusives at San Diego Con that you then find that's a little bit harder to get products, especially for retailers. There's a lot of booths. There's a lot of people, folks, just so you know, that don't sell to retailers.
Yep.
Right? Especially the Hasbro guys.
Fuck Mattel and fuck Funko Pop.
Yeah, They want to look at your badge, and if you are a retailer, they are not selling to you.
Yep. They don't even care about it. Retailer, exhibitor, anything that seems like you might own a store, they say, nope, sorry, we won't sell to you. Go fuck yourselves.
Yep. All right.
I think that was it, guys. Let's go to I wanted to open it up to chat tonight since we had extra time.
Any questions, let us know. We'll go a little bit longer for your questions.
So Dan Alvin asked, so PRH bought Boom, but I heard PRH isn't going to add them to their comic distro. That makes absolutely no sense.
There are contracts that are signed years in advance by every publisher for the distributor. I am pretty sure that once that contract is expired, that contract then gets rehired or re-signed by the parent company that owns them.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Is there Beyond Wednesdays t-shirts? There will be soon. So I'm hoping sometime first couple weeks after San Diego. So keep an eye on that. John Horn says, is that really an advantage to someone as big as Funko to not sell to dealers?
So I will explain the mentality behind it. So yes and no. Yes, because if you have a very loud, vocal Funko community who feels that the dealers are getting the best stuff before they get into the doors, they want a zero dealers. Dealers becomes a bad word. So that includes exhibitors. So like if little Billy Tucci wants to go over and get a Funko Pop of She, he can't go over there because he's in with his dad before the show opens, because heaven forbid somebody who might have the ability to resell gets to get into the line and get one before the postmaster of the Funko newspaper or the news group. If he sees one person in line from him when he rushes from the door to the Funko booth, clearly it's a conspiracy.
Well, think about all the hell from the
Brian,
C2E2
I just want
stuff.
I want to add the no part to this, which is somebody who at one point was buying close to $2,000 a month in Funko Pops, and all the other Funko Super 7 products and all the other, loot crates and stuff that Funko was making, as somebody who probably was spending $100,000 a year in Funko products, walks up to your booth because he happens to be at San Diego Comic-Con finding all the stuff that he's going to stock his store with, you better goddamn sell me a Funko Pop, because my money's good the other 51 weeks out of the year. It better be good this fucking weekend. And that's why I told Funko to go fuck off, and I canceled all my orders with them.
Well, here's the other side of that is we saw what happened in C2E2 during the whole acetate gate thing. The reason that popped off wasn't because it was a shit book, or it wasn't because they made a mistake on veteran stuff. It was because people saw influencers in line getting these books or getting stacks of them before other people. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a big part of it, too. There's a big PR aspect to that when, people start saying, well, they got...
in hindsight, that was the least of the PR nightmares that Black Flag Comics had that weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And keep in mind, until about 2006, well, I would probably say 2017, a dealer could walk in before the con opened and go to any booth and buy product. Yep. 2017, 2018 came, and literally you could not stand in line or be next to the booth. And so that the public would have this opportunity, especially who did DC? Who's the DC booth?
Graffiti.
Graffiti design.
Bob,
graffiti. Yeah, graffiti designs, which was a big thing. So by the time people came, we're sold out. Well, how can you be sold out? You just open. So there for Funko and all these companies, they're going. And Dennis, where I would disagree with you on, as someone who spends just as much as you, is those people you're dealing with. They have no idea who you are. Most of them aren't even from the company. They're just hires for the weekend.
But to not have a single pathway. I remember Mattel. I used to buy my daughter every Monster High doll from San Diego every year. And then there's just one year where I was in there early. I walked over to buy one. You have to tell them you have to fill out the little check form. I filled out for one. And when I got around to pay, they wanted to look at my badge, and it said dealer. It didn't say exhibitor. It said dealer. And they're like, oh, you're a dealer. You can't buy one. The people right behind me in line, the husband, the wife, and the 2-year-old child and the child in the stroller were allowed to buy 4 of each person. They had 16 of the Monster High doll that I wasn't allowed to buy one of. And they said, come back at the end of, I think it was Saturday.
Yeah.
And if we have any left, we'll allow dealers to come in line. And of course, guess what? Sold out. Fuck you, Mattel.
Yeah. So that's kind of where you're at. Funko, the $30 million. Brian knows about that. He did a report on that one. That was in Phoenix.
Yep. They're still doing things right now where you could come into Phoenix, make an appointment with them, and go into their big buildings and buy Funkos from them.
Yep.
So
yeah, and that works okay. When I was in the diecast business, Action was in Phoenix as well, so you can go in and get pallets of diecast. So that works out very well. I think that's a location thing. The supply company is out of Phoenix, so that makes it easy for us to get our product. So at the end of the day, I think it's everybody, you just got to have fun, and you got to take the politics out of it. You got to take the look at your schedule, and does it make sense to be in line for 3 hours, or are you missing the bigger part of the con?
Yep.
And that's what you have to figure out.
I get more, just for all of you new guys out there, I get more out of San Diego from standing in front of Hall D, smoking my little cigar. Oh, hey, what's up? Hey, haven't seen you in forever. What are you doing now? Okay, where are you staying? All right. Hey, I'll be at the bar. At 9. I'll see you there. All right. Hey, hold on. I got to go talk to hey, brother, come here. I haven't seen you. I go to San Diego because that's where everybody's at. I don't go there for an exclusive anymore. It's not worth my time. It's not worth my effort. It just isn't.
I think most of the time, I'll be real quick on this, Brian, before you say something. Most of the time, I'm buying from people because they're my friends and I want to support them. That's kind of how my buying has become. It's no longer, oh my gosh, this is going for 50. I can buy it for 20. Don't even care about that anymore.
Yep. That is exactly, that's what I was going to say. That's my main thing. I went with Leg, last year I was with Leg, and the year before that I was with Leg, but last year I told Leg towards the end of the 4-day weekend, I said, man, I'm not standing in line anymore because it's a waste of time for me. Like I'm older, I got this sciatic thing that freaking hurts me whenever I stand in line. Like I'm not doing that.
I'm getting too old for this shit.
Yeah. And the other thing is I can go and spend more time and more money buying from people that don't have a line than standing in line. And I can go buy things from my friends. You know where I go when I walk into San Diego for the first time? I go to 2 booths. I go to Alex Pardee and Brian Pulido. Those are the first 2 booths that I go to.
I add Billy Tucci to that.
Yep. I'll hit Art Adams too. And then the rest of the week, I'm just hanging out with my buddies. I've got things planned for each night, multiple things for each night, and I'm I'm next to Leg the whole time, and it's where are we going for lunch and a beer, and where are we going to be for dinner and a beer? You know, it's
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's a
Well,
reset.
I think the one thing that, and it's funny you said that, Brian, because last year I did notice there were more locals eating at the restaurants than there was actually comic book folks or San Diego Con people. That's the big thing I noticed last year.
Jesse, are you going to be there on Friday night, by the way?
I'll be there Friday night, yes.
Okay, so guys, I'll throw this in there because this is what I was thinking, because I'm looking at the way all the nights are already. Is everybody free Friday night? Because I think we should have a meetup on Friday night.
I don't know if I gotta find out my schedule. I gotta look at it again.
Okay, so tentatively
Saturday night,
Friday
and
Friday night
Thursday.
at the Marriott is our tentative meetup.
Okay.
After 10 o'clock. It'll be like a 10
Yeah,
o'clock
we
meetup.
we can see if we can make that happen. So
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
A group. So that's a tricky question. So Haven says,
It's Emmett. Shout out to Emmett.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Emmett. Shops need to have a real organization like a buying group so we have more buying power. So when I first came in, it was all about buying groups. And I can think of that 5 guys that we would say, okay, this is what you're then do. You then go to Dark Horse, you then go to Marvel, you then go to Aspen. I'm then go to Big Dog Inc. I'm then go to XYZ. I'm then go here, and I'm then go there. And so instead of us trying to chase 30, 40, 50 items, we had a group of buyers that knew, hey, you got to get 30 copies of this. There's 6 of us. We're going to divide this by 5. Right? If someone doesn't want their 5, then someone else will pick it up. I had a great buying group in New York, and this is a very funny story. So I had to deal with a company that I would buy all their exclusives if they didn't sell. And on Sunday, Skybound and Diamond had Walking Dead. I forgot what the issue number was, but it was a New York Comic Con exclusive. And they still had 12 boxes. And so I went with my group of people. I said, listen, I'm buying 12 boxes. And so as I was going, I met my good friend Tori, who stopped me and said, can I get my books now? And I said, yeah. So as I'm opening up these Walking Dead exclusives, I'm handing them to Tori, and someone says, is that the Walking Dead exclusive to me? I go, yeah. Well, can I buy that? I'm like, well, they're $20, right? And just kind of joking. Well, I'll take one. All of a sudden I get flooded, right? I literally, if Tori would have taken a picture, it was amazing. There was at least 50 people with $20 bills hanging up, and security came over and said, where's your table? And I said, well, I don't have a table. I'm a retailer. And I was actually kicked out for 2 years. I could not go back.
Wow.
But the whole point of that is you do have groups of sellers, and it's kind of your job to create that book. Me and Dennis did Amazing Spider-Man #1. It was our job to get that group of retailers together, not Marvel, not Diamond. And so I think there are groups out there. And you also got to realize that 90 to 95% of all retailers do not go to San Diego Con.
Yeah.
It's a very select
Well,
few.
now
If
they
you
have to
take
pay for the pass.
Oh, yeah. Now the passes aren't free. And folks, it's a lot of money to pay for a full week pass. Let me tell you that. And if you're getting 2, it's really a lot of money. So back in the day when you used to get them free, you got two free, and that got you into the Diamond Summit, and it was a blast. And so I would be very interested this year to see how big the Diamond Summit is. And back in the day when me and Dennis was going, you'd have 500-600 people in there. I don't know if we hit those numbers anymore for retailers. So
No, there was maybe 200 last year, tops.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun just to see everybody. I think that's what cons have become for me. It's fun to see everybody in person and hang out and be human again.
Right. And one final thing, Emmett, you can do a store exclusives for Funko. You have to get a hold of them. It's a lot of ones that you have to do. You have to create your own little guy thing and all that, but you can do your own store exclusives. So
but what Emmett was saying is I wish we had a group that would give us the buying power, and that group was supposed to be Diamond. But when Diamond got that cachet from our orders, from the retail community's orders. They then, this year, they have a Funko exclusive Grand Admiral Thrawn, but now they don't even sell it to the retailers. They're going to sell it at their booth and make all of the money for Diamond.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is amazing to think that retailers will not get their, they will not get the San Diego Con exclusives for 2 weeks.
Yep.
So we have to hope.
And it's what's left.
Yeah. What's left. It's allocated, and you got to hope that there's still hot books in 2 weeks.
Right.
All right.
And they're probably already 2 weeks old at the point at which they get there, because Diamond usually doesn't get the book that came out that week. So it's usually a 2-week-old book at San Diego, and then it's going to be a 4-week-old book by the time the retailer gets it.
Right. And the crazy thing about that is they're PX exclusives. So if you go through the history and you do percentage-wise, PX does not have a good record. Hey, Brian, I want to ask you something off topic. Can you, because I caught this on the tail end, can you tell me or tell us what the buzz is for Red Hulk?
So Red Hulk is getting ready to be in the new Captain America movie.
Okay.
So
Sabra.
Well, nobody's talking about Sabra.
Torres as Falcon.
Nobody's talking about Sabra at all. As a matter of fact, they're trying to keep her from not talking about it because there's such a pushback on her, which is ridiculous. But the funny thing is those Hulk books are just going through the roof, and it's brought up the whole first appearance, cameo appearance, storyline again, and that's always one of those fun conversations that we have 100 times a year, Right. So yeah.
And so what is his first appearance?
First appearance is in Hulk number 1 from 2008.
Which one is it?
Hulk number 1 from 2008. I'll show you it.
The one that Atomic Comics did that store exclusive for.
Yes.
Okay, so that is it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is let's see here. Let's do this. This is the issue right here that everybody complains about.
Nothing for nothing. I have all of the 9/8s on this, including the 1 in 25 that isn't the Atomic Comics, and the all the best ones over on eBay. Go if you need it, go buy it.
Yeah.
So are you saying that they are disputing that? Is there another Red Hulk?
So here's the problem. So in this book, he's on the cover, but in the book, he only shows up in a panel where you're seeing it through another person's viewing thing, and he's not red, he's green, right?
Oh.
And that was part of the reason to keep you guessing until issue 2. So General Ross, who is Red Hulk, is Hulk in this issue.
Spoiler alert, Brian.
And he's not red because that's part of the storyline. So you bought the next issue, and people are complaining again that you gotta be in so many panels, and you gotta be part of the story, and you gotta jump through this hoop and that hoop and that and this hoop. And here's the problem: writers are going to write whatever the fuck they want to tell a good story. They don't care whether a comic collector thinks that a first appearance has got to be in so many panels and so many things and then on the cover too. You can't ask these people to do this. You can't, and the reason why this came up is because we said, well, in baseball cards, the Players Association, who allows the rights to make these cards, said, we want rookies to be well defined in the card collecting thing, because back in the day there used to be these arguments for rookies. They had XRCs, which were traded sets that came out the year before, but those players, next year was their real rookie, and it convoluted.
Well, and then they only had one printing. They had one printing a year, and then the update would catch everything that came up or went down throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah. And so baseball said, no, from now on, you don't print a rookie card unless a player plays so many games, and then you can put a rookie logo on it. And that's how it's been, since that happened. That's not going to happen in comics. Comics doesn't have a writers union. It doesn't have like the players union, that type of thing. that's not going to happen. And you can't force a writer to stay in between these walls if you want good stories. It's just not, you can't say, if you're going to write for us, you have to make sure that if you create a character, you have to put it in 4 or 5 panels, and then you have to have it on the cover, and like, you can't do that. This is a totally different thing, and it just gives people another thing to argue about.
To me, covers count. First appearance of Gwenpool is Marvel Secret Wars #1, where she's on the cover.
I agree.
Period.
Yep.
It's not Howard the Duck.
I'll even go, there's some people that say, hey, the first appearance is when you first see them. So like, I found that Marvel Age book the other day, Marvel Age 58.
Yep.
It came out the same day as X Factor 23. And so you have the first appearance of Archangel, but X Factor 23 didn't have Archangel on the cover. Marvel Age 58 has Archangel on the cover, part of the 4 Horsemen. So like, there's all these different factors, and it's going to change through time. Just like we're getting cyclical here, getting about ready to end the episode. We were talking at the beginning of the episode that back in the day, Marvel Comics #1 was sold for more than Action Comics #1. Obviously, that doesn't work anymore. Things change.
Yeah.
It'll change in the future if comics are around in 40, 50 years, which hopefully they are. Looks like everything else. It'll change then. It's very interesting, and it's also pushed by a lot of people that have the books. If they have this book and not that book, they're going to say this is the book.
Well, and once again, let's go back to the beginning of the show. And as Jesse said, Overstreet price guides and advisors set those notations.
Yes.
And I've always joked, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. The reason why Hulk 180 is the first one to get cameo status rather than first appearance was because the dealers, who also happen to be the Overstreet advisors, had no idea that little character at the back of Hulk 180 was going to be something. But by the time Hulk 181 came around and they could order a lot more of them, that became the first appearance because they had more of them in stock.
Right. I'm not understanding this question. What's this question here? It says, I know we're getting ready to shut this show down, but what if it's a cover appearance on a second print?
So
I just chimed in. Miss Marvel 17 has that appearance of Kamala Khan cutting her costume in the last panel. It sold out. It was the first appearance of Kamala Khan, technically 14, but we get around to coming around at 17. Then they made the second print, and they put the character who doesn't appear on the cover of 17 on a low distribution second print. And that became the more valuable book because it's not just her first appearance. It's a second print of her first appearance, but also first cover appearance.
Oh, okay. I get it.
So,
and of course, Marvel milked that cow till it was shriveled up and dead.
Yeah.
And then they'll make a what do they call them?
Marvel Point Ones.
No. The stupid thing that they reprint everything now. Facsimile. Now there's a facsimile, a facsimile variant, a facsimile 1 in 25, and then milking the cow.
Yeah. So I want to do some shout outs real quick. Shout out to everybody in the chat live tonight. Shout out to some of the people. I want to shout out Heroes Reborn Comics. Great community member. He's always cracking me up, and I love this picture here. Thanks to John Horn and Heroes Reborn and all the people that have been buying books from me in my recent Whatnot live sales. I call Jesse every day, and I tell him all the time, hey man, I don't know how you're doing this, selling this stuff with all this shipping because of how crazy it is. But I really have to say to those people that have been jumping into these live sales and buying books, I know you guys are getting good books and good deals, but I also want to thank you for that because that's how I'm paying for San Diego this year. I'm going to San Diego off the money I made from those live sales, and those live sales have answered a very important question for me, and that is the question we asked tonight about comic books and how it's selling. comic books are selling. They are selling, and all you have to do is go sell them.
Right. Can you highlight that picture, the books he was showing?
Mm-hmm.
Can you highlight that? Is
What
that
do you mean
possible?
highlight it? No,
Zoom in.
no.
Yeah.
That's
Enhance.
about as far as I can
Enhance.
zoom in.
There you go. So I want to leave on this point here. You are looking at modern iconic keys, right? And you could say that, if you had, I have a mind blank here, but Silver Age, we're not really pushing Silver Age and Bronze Age as far as paying our bills. It's the modern keys that have held this business to these big standards of improving the business because they're more, number one, they're then being every single collection you buy, right? Every single collection has a New Mutants 98. I don't care who's bringing in their collection. They have a New Mutants 98. They have a New Mutants 87. They most likely have an Amazing Spider-Man number 3. And NYX is a little bit different. But the change of what we highlight nowadays is kind of funny compared to what we used to highlight.
And I'll go one step further. We were trashing on Wizard earlier. Every one of those books at some point was on a Wizard hot list, stayed as a you must own it Wizard top 10. NYX, until Wizard folded, was one of their top 10 keys that you had to have before X23 had her own series, before X23 was in a movie, So these were consistently what I call the normie books, the normie keys.
Yeah.
They still are the hot books. You still have, just look. You still have Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld,
Joe Quesada.
Todd McFarlane, and Joe Quesada. Those are three names
Josh Middleton.
that are the current modern Mount Rushmore of comic creators.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's crazy. Great picture. I think that's awesome, but it does make a statement about where we are in time in the comic book world as far as keys go.
Yeah. So that being said, you guys, again, thank you for everybody that supports us here at Beyond Wednesdays. Drop a comment if you have any questions that you would like us to answer. We're going to try and be better about answering questions from the viewers. So if you have questions or something to say, definitely drop a comment. You guys can find links to our stuff in the description. And we're going to, if you're in San Diego, let us know. I've had a lot of people reach out to me already saying, hey, stop by this booth, say hello, stop by this booth, say hello. So if you're in San Diego, let us know and we'll try and meet up. So
is the Facebook page active for Beyond Wednesdays now? Open to public?
Yeah. It should be. It should be. Yeah. So that being said, you guys, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Adios.
Great night.